Consuming things like fruits and vegetables can have health benefits. So the line between food and medicine has often been a little blurry. Surely, however, there was never a time when people thought chocolate sauce was medicinal, right?
Moo?
Wrong. Which is why today we're taking a look at the dessert topping that was invented to be a medicine. Let's start with the plant that makes it all possible, the cacao tree. More specifically, the Theobroma cacao tree, or tea cacao for short. This small evergreen plant produces seed pods, and when the seeds within are dried and fermented, you get the foundation of all modern chocolate. They originally grew naturally in the Amazon rainforest, and modern anthropological evidence suggests that the local people began domesticating them as far back as 5000 BCE. Talk about your early adapters. As of 1500 BCE, there's evidence of the Olmec people of modern Mexico preparing and consuming hot chocolate beverages. Now, traditional Olmec hot chocolate is not exactly what the Swiss Miss is currently dishing out. They had figured out the process of fermenting and roasting that made cacao beans edible, but the chocolate drink they made with the ground results was not sweetened, and thus must have been intensely bitter. The Olmecs were happy to drink it though, as it was an easy source of calories and provided a pleasant energy boost. The cultivation and use of cacao would spread across South America from there. Later on, the Aztecs even used the beans as a form of currency. There's always money in the chocolate plant. Chocolate would stay in this form and on this continent for a long time, until the arrival of Europeans in the 15th century. Those Europeans would then bring cacao beans along with them when they returned home. Early chocolate adoption, however, faced some adversity in the form of the Catholic Church, which considered chocolate's energizing effects to be suspect and declared chocolate beverages as prescribed on days of fasting. God saying no chocolate was probably a bummer. But in 1662, Cardinal Brancaccio, who we suspect may have had a bit of a sweet tooth, lifted the prohibition. By the 1700s, chocolate's popularity had exploded in the Old World, and the first sweetened chocolate beverages that we might recognize as modern hot chocolate started being made and enjoyed across the continent. They'd also make their way back to the Americas with the British, eventually to be American colonists. The popularization of chocolate drinks in Europe coincided with the rise of its use as a medicine. Explorers returning from the Spanish colonies in Mesoamerica brought with them not just chocolate, but tales of the various medicinal properties the native peoples attributed to it. And in a time before modern science, that was proof enough for many. European medicinal practices, you see, were still largely based on the allelopathic concepts set down by the ancient Greek Hippocrates. You know, the four humors guy? And that's not a reference to his stand-up set. During this period, medicine revolved around his concepts of maintaining the balance of the body, and a proper diet was a big part of that. So chocolate was quickly adopted as a remedy, with uses including helping the sickly gain weight, stimulating the nervous system, and improving digestion. For example, such uses would be for people suffering from wasting disease, where chocolate's proven ability to assist in weight gain helped it treat the symptoms, albeit not their causes. Hey, better than nothing. As we approached the modern era, chocolate was still widely used as a medicine, and early pharmacists could be expected to have it among the ingredients of their trade. And while the flavor was always part of the appeal, it was only around the turn of the 19th century that chocolate became particularly prized by pharmacists for this aspect. See, many medicines of this period were based around a type of chemical compounds known as alkaloids. The importance of these compounds in modern medicine is undeniable. The very first one isolated was morphine, so we're talking about medications that definitely work. The problem is that while their medicinal effects are undeniably potent, alkaloids taste like mule sweat. And in a time before pill production had been effectively scaled, most people had to taste their medication, and they did not like it. But pharmacists realized their existing stocks of chocolate could help. According to the 1899 text, The Pharmaceutical Era, chocolate was an excellent choice for masking the taste of bitter or nauseous medicinal substances, noting its particular effectiveness with children.
When you put a squirt of frosting down your throat before we take the medication,
Now, it's uncertain exactly when pharmacists began combining ground cacao, water, and sugar to produce the first chocolate syrups, as it was basically a variation on existing chocolate beverages. But it likely wasn't until after the invention of cacao powder in 1828. In that year, a Dutch chemist, Conrad J. van Houten, patented a press that removed some of the chocolate's natural fats. The resulting powder was easier to dissolve in water than the earlier version and significantly less bitter. Of course, it still wasn't what we have now. In fact, that early chocolate required about 8 times as much sugar as chocolate does today. Nonetheless, the result was an explosion of pharmacists mixing up their own chocolate syrup for their customers to take with their medicine. The latter half of the 19th century was a wild time for medicine in the West. In fact, you might call it the era of Wild West medicine. It was a time where capitalism was far outpacing actual medical science, and a lack of regulation led to an explosion in patent medicine. The term comes from the British system of medicines being patentable inventions, and it dates back to the 1600s. But by the 1800s, it had become more of a catch-all term for any medicine sold as a unique formula, regardless of official acknowledgement, especially in the United States. Booming populations and advances in science had a population hungry to take advantage of modernizing medicine. The evolving discipline of chemistry was discovering new substances and compounds every day, with wildly varying effects on the human body. But medical discipline itself was not moving as fast as the market, and into the empty space slipped the conmen, grifters, and snake oil salesmen.
I'm dumbfounded that you folks haven't heard about the concoction in this here bottle.
You have to remember that this was in an era before any real medical oversight. There was no required testing, no FDA, and honestly, little grassroots sense of medical ethics. The market was flooded with medicines of dubious origin, promising a host of benefits and delivering a host of consequences. Many were pure placebos made with nothing but fruit juice and empty promises. But thanks to the aforementioned chemistry boom, your average medicine dealer had the kind of access to powerful substances that would make a modern drug dealer green with envy. Opium and cocaine were popular additives, since they would perceptibly treat symptoms like pain or discomfort. And as a bonus, their addictive properties encouraged repeat customers. Unless you think there was even a hint of morality going on there, they were happy to market these cure-alls to anyone. That led to products like Stickleyon Pores Paregoric, a tincture of opium that was recommended for colicky infants as young as 5 days old. We've heard of get 'em while they're young, but that might be pushing it. Anyway, while business was booming, the flavor problems persisted. All the way up to the 20th century, most medicines still came in liquid or powdered form, and most patients still hated the taste. So the boom in medicines came with a boom in the need to mask their flavor, and that led to a chocolate boom.
To a night I'll never forget.
As with most drug-fueled crazes, the good times eventually came to an end. In 1906, the US government passed the Pure Food and Drug Act, which required all food and drugs to be clearly labeled with all their ingredients. This would put a significant damper on the patent medicine boom, as people were suddenly made aware of exactly what it was they had been putting in their bodies. The final nail would come in 1914 with the passing of the Harrison Narcotics Act, which put the kibosh on many of the drugs snake oil salesmen relied on to keep their products nice and addictive. On top of all that, the early 20th century saw techniques perfected for the mass production of pressed pills, with a swallowable alternative. Medicine takers no longer needed the taste of their substances disguised. And with that change, chocolate syrup's use as a medicine-adjacent flavor aid came to an end. This also happened to coincide with the rise of the milk chocolate bar. While the Nestle process of creating milk chocolate dates back to the late 17th century, it was the introduction of the Hershey chocolate bar in 1900 that pushed the milk chocolate bar into the mainstream. As the 20th century moved on, the public perception of chocolate rapidly switched from medicine and food to just food. Luckily for the pharmacists, they had long been selling soda drinks and ice creams to supplement their medicine business, and their chocolate products were no less popular without the opium chaser.
All right, then I think I'll get an ice cream soda.
Chocolate syrup's usefulness as flavor enhancer worked even better when you paired it with things that already tasted good. Rather than a setback, chocolate's divorce from the medicinal world saw its popularity soar higher than ever. The only problem, at this point, was that chocolate syrup was still mixed up by hand by the confectioner, meaning there was no consistency from one place to another. In 1900, that would change, as Fox's You Bet, the first pre-mixed chocolate syrup, began production in Brooklyn, New York. The creator was Herman Fox, a Jewish man from Brooklyn who went to Texas in the late 1800s and lost all his money on an oil well investment. He returned to New York penniless, but with the Texan phrase, "You bet it's good," still clearly floating around in his head. He eventually turned his fortunes around with a chocolate sauce, which he supposedly invented in his basement and sold at soda counters across New York. It quickly became popular, and it's still around today. In fact, it remains the only chocolate sauce you can use if you want to make a truly authentic egg cream by the original recipe. You Bet lives and dies on its classic formula, which has remained unchanged since the beginning. That means all natural ingredients and real sugar. Customers could now be ensured a consistent taste, and pharmacists no longer had to bother making the syrup themselves. Now, You Bet might have been the first, but nowadays, when you think of chocolate syrup, you likely picture Hershey's iconic brown bottle. Hershey's got in on the action in 1926, when they began production of their own canned syrups. Their first offering came in cans of single and double strength syrup, which they exclusively marketed towards commercial businesses. Single strength was touted as perfect for soda fountain mixes, while double strength was supposed to be used for ice cream toppings and milk drinks. The product was so popular that by 1930, Hershey began marketing the single-strength version directly to the home consumer. After that, chocolate syrup was not just a staple of pharmacies, but also the pantries of everyday folks. Hershey's marketing would help expand its reach by creating new recipes that used the product and getting them published in popular homemaker magazines at the time like Good Housekeeping, Delineator, and Women's Home Companion. The ubiquitous brown plastic bottles were introduced in 1979, and a million ice cream sundaes cried out in celebration. A third early contender that's still with us today is Bosco's chocolate syrup. Invented by an unrecorded physician in Camden, New Jersey in 1928, the formula was purchased by the William S. Skull Company in 1931, who for obvious reasons declined to change its name to Skull Syrup. For most of its history, Bosco's maintained a unique flavor by adding malt extract and vanilla flavor into the mix, but they stopped doing that in 2020. So if you wanted that malt, we're sorry to tell you, you missed your 89-year window. Finally divorced from its medicinal roots, chocolate syrup took off as big business. Over the years, many other brands would get in on the action. Today, there's more chocolatey choices than ever. You can go extra cheap with brands like Trader Joe's self-branded sauce, or expensive with fancy options like Ghirardelli. Needless to say, if you're craving chocolate syrup, the average modern grocery store will leave you spoiled for choice. Besides desserts, there's one other old-timey use for chocolate sauce that we just have to mention: Hollywood. See, back in the black and white days, filmmakers discovered that chocolate sauce made for great on-screen blood. Its dark color read great on monochrome film, and its non-toxic and easily washable nature made it a great choice for practicality purposes. Hitchcock even used it for the blood in Psycho. The story doesn't end there, however. For while chocolate firmly transitioned from the medicinal food category to a simple indulgence over the 1900s, modern science has a bit more to say on the matter. In the latter part of the 20th century, chocolate was identified to have notable antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. These are likely part of the explanation for its long-standing traditional use as medicine. Further study has also revealed that chocolate consumption appears to have a measurably good effect on brain function. In fact, studies have shown that nations with higher chocolate consumption also seem to produce significantly more Nobel laureates. So while we acknowledge that correlation is not necessarily causation, we advise everyone everywhere take no chances and eat more chocolate syrup, unless you're allergic or something like that. So there you have it. From the rainforests of the Amazon to the drizzle over your pancakes, the history of chocolate and chocolate syrup has forever been a balancing act between its perceived health benefits and its decadent nature. And let's be frank here, there is nothing more human than insisting that something you like is actually good for you. It's no wonder people have been touting chocolate's health benefits since the beginning. It's a great excuse to eat more chocolate, though it's not like we need an excuse. According to the National Candy Association, chocolate-based candies remain the top seller in the industry. So it better be healthy, because we haven't stopped eating chocolate for 7,000 years. And we aren't about to now.
I've had 3 people try to eat me today. 3!
So what do you think? And what's your favorite brand of chocolate syrup? Let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and then check out some of these other videos from Weird History Food.